Good evening, everybody. This is the first UX Live that we are doing, and the reason we decided to do lives all this month is because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we need to be talking a lot more about domestic violence, the dynamics of domestic violence, and also understand the laws around domestic violence. And also, of course, the ramifications of domestic violence and the mental impact when somebody is in an abusive relationship. I will be using domestic violence and intimate partner violence as terms in interchangeable ways because I want this live to be inclusive and also include people of different sexual orientations. Having said that, the legal aspects in India still primarily look at domestic violence from the perspective of violence towards a woman from a man in some kind of relationship. So it does not have to be marriage per se, it can also be a live-in relationship, but that is how domestic violence is defined in India. However, to help the audience understand the psychological ramifications and also intimate partner violence dynamics, I'll be using the two terms interchangeably. Before I jump into today's content, I am really disturbed about the two rapes that have recently happened in India, and I feel like that is something that we really should be talking about women, Dalit women, marginalized women, and rape as an instrument of power and control. So even today when I talk about domestic violence, I will be talking a lot about power and control dynamics, because in both domestic violence and rape, the real issue is of power and control, and systemic power and control as well, and not just about rape is not about sex, and domestic violence is not about marital issues. Both of them are rooted in a patriarchal society and in the dynamics of power and control, which I really wish to convey today. 2 years ago, we did our first panel discussion on domestic violence where we invited lawyers, cops, other NGO workers, and we discussed domestic violence and the dynamics, and people were allowed to ask questions, and it was interactive. Unfortunately, due to COVID, everything we do this month is only online, and I hope that the word will spread and more people will be able to watch these videos, if not live, then later as they are saved on our page. Because domestic violence, sexual abuse, sexual assault, these are things that over the next few months we really want to talk about. However, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so today I'm going to stick to domestic violence. The rates of domestic violence in India are very, very high. 1 out of 4 women have been through some kind of intimate partner violence or domestic violence. There are 5 types of domestic violence, or 5 things that happen that go under the category of domestic violence. The first being physical abuse, kicking, hitting, pushing. All of that goes into biting. I've actually seen cases where there is biting between the partners, spitting. All this goes under physical abuse. Also, as I start talking to you about examples, you will notice that certain examples will fit in more than one category. So, for example, spitting in your partner is not only physical abuse but also emotional abuse. However, in India, unfortunately, when we think of domestic violence and intimate partner violence, we are mostly thinking about physical violence, and violence is not only limited to physical abuse. So there is a lot of emotional abuse, and I want to talk in some detail about emotional abuse today, specifically gaslighting, emotional manipulation, intimidation, and pulling and pushing that happens a lot in domestic violence relationships. I need you. Get away from me, I don't want to be with you anymore. That's the pulling and pushing dynamic. Gaslighting, that means abusing your partner verbally, and when they speak up for themselves, becoming the victim and blaming them for the abuse. That's a huge part of domestic violence or intimate partner violence or any toxic relationship actually. And of course, manipulating and intimidating. So sometimes partners will not directly hit the partner but might break a wall or hit a wall or hit a door or break a door. That is still intimidation, which shows the partner that I am not only capable of doing this, but I'm also capable of hitting you. And that's very often used in relationships. Now let's start at the basics before I go into all these violence more as to why violence happens. So it is not a mere coincidence that domestic violence or intimate partner violence is cross-cultural. It happens everywhere. But the incidence of this kind of violence is very, very, very high in patriarchal cultures. Now, why is it high in patriarchal cultures? Because in patriarchal cultures, we raise men to have control, be independent, be the primary bread earners, look out for themselves and then their family. And we teach women to be very relational. So teach them to be good mothers, good daughters, good sisters, good wives, um, and often teach them to be dependent. So as men and women grow up in a patriarchal culture, it almost creates a culture of dependence where women have to be dependent on men. This makes the whole it creates the atmosphere where domestic violence can happen or be perpetuated, because women are taught to be relational. Women are taught that they are primarily responsible for how a relationship turns out. Failing in a relationship is seen as a major failure for women, a bigger failure for women than men. And women are also taught to be dependent on their partners, sometimes financially, but if not financially, emotionally, societally. Without a husband, you don't mean anything. So when women's identities are wrapped up into men, it often becomes very, very hard for women to walk out of toxic relationships or of relationships where there is violence. A little disclaimer here that we are not saying that men are not survivors of domestic violence, but we've been running the UX crisis lines for 8 years now, and 80% of our calls are from women. So victims of domestic violence primarily still tend to be women. And that is something important to remember, that even though we do not work with any specific gender in terms of this work, however, most of the calls we get are from women around domestic violence. So like I mentioned physical abuse, I mentioned emotional abuse, there's also verbal abuse. So calling your partner fat, bad mother, ugly, no one else would marry you. This is verbal abuse which is done so that also they can break the spirit of the partner, so that the partner starts losing self-esteem, self-confidence. And it's much easier to break down a person once we've broken down their spirit. So that is a huge dynamic of domestic violence, and one type of abuse, which is verbal abuse. Verbal abuse obviously also has an emotional impact. Sexual abuse, so even though marital rape is not recognized as rape in India, actually sexual abuse within a marriage or a partnership that can go under the Domestic Violence Act and is seen as one type of abuse. That means forcing your partner to do something that they don't want to, refusing to use contraception, lying about contraception, forcing your partner to have sexual relationships with other people, or do anything without their consent. That all actually comes under sexual abuse in domestic violence. And the last and very, very common in India, the type of abuse in domestic violence that we see is financial abuse. So using money to control your partner. So this can happen by giving your partner only an allowance, asking for a proper hisab, not letting them have any control over the money. I have seen hundreds of cases now over the last 10 years where it'll be 10 years of marriage and 15 years of marriage and nothing named on the partner's name. So neither the house nor the car, all of that is kept in the name of the man of the family or the man and his mother, and so hence women don't have any access to that if they do decide to leave. We often see in domestic violence cases as well that men will show that they do not have any money, or cannot give maintenance, or cannot give child support, further keeping the woman locked into the marriage. And that's not very uncommon in India. So the 5 types of abuse that you'll commonly see in domestic violence, just to summarize, are physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, and financial abuse. Why would somebody want to use these tactics? Why would somebody want to be abusive? So like I said, at the heart of domestic violence is power and control. It's primarily done to control your partner and have power over them. Why would that be necessary? Healthy relationships do not have such power dynamics, but a lot of patriarchal relationships where men are seen as the man of the castle, the primary bread earner, women are seen as objects or something to own or control. Till this kind of thinking does not go away, no matter how strict we make the domestic violence law, I don't think that this aspect of domestic violence is going to change, where men feel the need to have power and control their partners. Of course, we are not saying all men, because I know men are sensitive and this whole all men debate comes up, but let me tell you, lots of men. Lots and lots of men display power and control dynamics in relationships, and so do women. What happens is that men use physical abuse and intimidation a lot more, and women tend to use emotional abuse and verbal abuse a lot more in violent relationships. 1 in 4 women in India will be impacted by domestic violence, like I said, so that is a really, really high number. And it is also related to how we socialize and raise men to be violent. So in fact, we raise men to have only one emotion, and that's anger. All other emotions are subsumed under that. So it is completely fine when men show anger. In fact, few years ago, domestic violence was not even a big deal. It was seen as a family issue, something that the family dealt with, and something that the man was doing to his wife, so it didn't bother anybody else. But domestic violence is a pandemic. It is a social issue that we all need to start talking about if we need to get it under control. Okay. I encourage you all to see the power and control wheel that is available online very easily. There's a power and control wheel for teens. There's a power and control wheel for immigrants. There's power and control wheel for gender relationships. And at the center of the power and control wheel, and let me show you this, is... give me 1 second. At the center of power and control wheel is obviously power and control. This is used by using isolation, so controlling what your partner does, who she sees, who she talks to, where she goes, limiting her outside involvement, sometimes not allowing her to work. Using jealousy to justify her actions. I feel jealous when you see other people or talk to other people, so they stop doing that. Or sabotaging any new friendships or relationships they have, or even isolating them from their own family. Emotional abuse, it looks more like putting her down, calling her names, making her feel small, bad about herself. One of the tactics that I see the most is men often telling women that they're bad mothers, because that's seen as a terrible thing in India. Making her feel crazy by using gaslighting, humiliating her in front of others and co-workers so she feels terrible about herself. Intimate partner violence or domestic violence can also have the use of children, where children are triangulated in the violence and messages are passed through the children to the parent, to the mother. I've even had cases where the partner has said things like, your mother is a slut, to the child, so that the child starts feeling bad about how their mother is, and making her feel bad about her parenting. Intimidation, like I said, and coercion and threats are a huge part of domestic violence. Making her afraid by looks, actions, gestures, to control her, to threaten her welfare. In the US, what was very common was displaying weapons. Very often partners displayed weapons to show the partner that they were in charge. Minimizing, denying and blaming. Minimizing, denying and blaming is actually a very, very important part of domestic violence. And how is that used? So this is when a partner hits, suppose, the wife, and then when we are involved, he'll often tell us, I just pushed her. So even though she had broken bones, he'll say, I just pushed her. Not only is the partner telling us this or the police this, but often they're telling themselves this, that I didn't hit her that bad. It's to minimize the abuse so that they can live with it in their mind, and also tell the partner that they're overreacting because all they did was just push them. So that's minimization. Denying is denial. I didn't do that at all. So abusing someone, and when they bring up the abuse, saying things like, oh, I didn't abuse you, or you're making this up, I never said these things. And blame is, I wouldn't have done this if you didn't make me do this. Because you go out and meet this person, or because you go out and do this, I have to hit you, or I have to abuse you. So blaming the abuse back on the person. That is also a huge part of domestic violence. Economic abuse, like I said, preventing her from getting a job, keeping a job. So even if she gets a job, then making sure she loses the job, or creating a scene at her workplace, not allowing her to participate in any of the financial conversations in the house, and keeping her on an allowance, and then asking for a proper hisab of the allowance is also part of economic abuse.